the unspoken pull. I used to think love was simple, like a straight path with only one direction. For years, I had been with Adam, and to everyone around me, we looked like the perfect couple. He was charming, dependable, the kind of man who made people smile when they said his name. My parents adored him, my friends often teased me about when he would propose, and deep down, I convinced myself I should feel lucky. He gave me comfort, safety, and a life that seemed certain. But certainty isn't the same as passion. I never admitted it aloud, not even to myself, but something was always missing. I would lie awake at night wondering why my heart never raced when Adam held my hand, why my breath never caught in my throat when he kissed me. I cared for him, yes, but love? The kind of love that makes your soul ache with longing? That felt like a story I had only read in novels. Then came Maya. It was an ordinary Saturday evening when my friend invited me to a small get-together. I almost didn't go. Adam wanted us to have dinner at home, but something inside me craved a change, even if I didn't know what. When I arrived, the room was warm with laughter, the hum of music filling the air, glasses clinking, people leaning close in conversation. And then I saw her. Maya. She stood near the corner, laughing with someone, her dark hair falling effortlessly over her shoulder, her eyes bright like they carried secrets only the brave could unlock. There was something magnetic about her presence, something that made me pause mid-step. And then, as if she sensed me watching, her gaze lifted and met mine. It wasn't just a look, it was a spark. My stomach tightened, my chest felt suddenly alive, and in that one instant, I felt something I had never felt with Adam. I told myself it was nothing, just a fleeting moment, maybe even admiration for her confidence. But the truth was harder to swallow. That single glance held more heat than years of tender gestures from the man I was supposed to love. I spent the night in a tug-of-war with myself. I laughed at jokes, sipped my drink, and forced myself to stay grounded in conversations. But no matter how hard I tried, my attention kept drifting back to Maya. The way she smiled when she spoke, how she leaned in when listening, the quiet intensity she carried, it all wrapped around me like a pull I couldn't resist. When we finally exchanged words, just a casual hello and introduction, her voice settled into me like music I had been waiting to hear. It was soft, but strong, a voice that seemed to see through me. And as we spoke, even briefly, I felt it, the truth I had been hiding from for years. Something inside me whispered, this is what love is supposed to feel like. A heart divided. For days after that evening, I couldn't shake Maya from my mind. It was ridiculous, I told myself. I had a boyfriend, a good one, someone who cared for me, who had stood by me through everything. Yet, the memory of Maya's eyes lingered like a flame that refused to die. The way she smiled, the warmth in her voice, it replayed in my head on a loop. Adam noticed my distraction. You seem far away lately, he said one night as we sat on the couch, a movie flickering across the screen. I forced a smile, leaning into his shoulder, hoping he wouldn't notice how my heart wasn't in it. I cared for him deeply, but even in his arms, I felt restless, like I was searching for something beyond reach. The truth gnawed at me. Why did one brief encounter with Maya feel more powerful than years with Adam? Why did I crave her presence, her laugh, her everything when I barely knew her? A week later, fate intervened. My friend invited me out for coffee, and when I arrived, Maya was there. My breath caught the moment I saw her, as if the universe was playing with me, testing me. She greeted me with that same magnetic smile, and I swore my chest tightened. We sat together, the three of us, chatting casually. But soon, my friend excused herself to take a call, leaving Maya and me alone. For a moment, silence stretched between us, and all I could hear was the thundering of my own heartbeat. You seemed quiet the other night, Maya said gently, her eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made me feel exposed. I laughed nervously. I guess I was just distracted. Her lips curved into a knowing smile. Funny, I thought you were the only one in the room who wasn't pretending. Her words hit me like lightning. How could she see through me so easily? How could she make me feel both vulnerable and alive in the same breath? We spoke for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. She told me about her love for painting, the way colors told stories words sometimes couldn't. I found myself opening up about things I never shared with Adam, the way I sometimes felt trapped by expectations, the way I longed for something more, though I couldn't quite name it. With Maya, the words flowed effortlessly, as if my soul had been waiting for hers to listen. When my friend returned, the spell broke, but the feeling remained. As I walked home later, Adam called to ask if I wanted to have dinner together. His voice was warm, familiar, safe. Yet my mind was elsewhere, consumed by a pair of eyes that had seen me in ways no one else ever had. That night, lying beside Adam, I realized the truth I had been avoiding. My heart was no longer whole, it was divided. And sooner or later, I would have to choose. The weight of silence. The following days felt like walking a tightrope. Every moment with Adam was shadowed by thoughts of Maya. I tried to push her out of my head, tried to bury the feelings, but it was useless. She lingered in everything, in the quiet moments when Adam talked about his day, in the soft glow of streetlights when we walked home together, even in my dreams where her voice whispered truths I didn't want to face. One evening, Adam surprised me with dinner at my favorite restaurant. The gesture was sweet, thoughtful, everything he always was. But as he held my hand across the table, telling me about his plans for the future, all I could think about was how different it felt compared to the brief brush of Maya's fingers when she passed me a coffee cup. That tiny touch had sent waves through me, while Adam's steady warmth only reminded me of what was missing. "Are you happy?" Adam asked suddenly, his eyes searching mine. The question caught me off guard. Of course, I answered too quickly, my smile too forced. He nodded, but I saw the flicker of doubt in his gaze. He knew something was changing, even if I couldn't say it aloud. A few days later, Maya and I crossed paths again, this time by accident. I was leaving the bookstore when she walked in, her hair tucked behind her ear, her expression lighting up the moment she saw me. "Hey," she said, her voice soft but filled with warmth. "Hi," I replied, my heart racing. We decided to grab coffee together, and once again, time slipped away. Conversation with her wasn't just easy, it was intoxicating. I found myself leaning in, laughing in ways I hadn't in years, feeling lighter, freer. When she looked at me, it wasn't like Adam's steady gaze of comfort. It was fire, curiosity, and something deeper, something that made me want to leap into the unknown. At one point, she reached across the table, her hand grazing mine. It was innocent, a simple touch, but my breath caught. I didn't pull away. Neither did she. The silence between us carried more weight than any words could. "I don't know what this is," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "But being around you, it feels different." Her eyes softened, and she didn't try to push me for more. She just said, "Sometimes the heart knows before the mind does." That night, guilt consumed me. I lay awake beside Adam, who slept peacefully, unaware of the storm raging inside me. He had given me stability, years of care, and a love that was steady. But Maya had opened a door to something raw and undeniable. And in the darkness, I asked myself the question I dreaded most. What if the life I had built with Adam was never meant for me? Lines began to blur. Every day felt heavier, as if I was carrying two different worlds inside me. One was familiar, stable, predictable, my life with Adam. The other was new, dangerous, exhilarating. Every thought of Maya, every stolen glance, every heartbeat that quickened whenever I imagined her near. I tried to drown myself in routine, hoping the feelings would fade. Adam and I went on dinner dates, watched movies, and talked about the future, but my laughter sounded hollow to my own ears. Even when he wrapped his arms around me, I felt the distance widening. And he noticed. "You're slipping away from me," Adam said one evening, his voice breaking as he studied my face. I don't know what's wrong, but I feel it. I wanted to tell him everything, to confess, to explain the war inside me. But the words stayed locked in my throat. How could I hurt someone who had given me nothing but love? Then, as if destiny had no mercy, Maya called. She asked if I wanted to see the art exhibit she'd been talking about, her voice laced with excitement. Against every ounce of reason, I said yes. The gallery was quiet, filled with colors that seemed to pulse with emotion. Maya walked beside me, explaining the stories behind each painting, her hand brushing mine now and then. Every touch was a spark, every look a silent confession. At one point, we stopped in front of a canvas painted in shades of crimson and gold. "This one," Maya whispered, "is about love that feels impossible, but unstoppable." Her eyes met mine, and I knew she wasn't talking about the painting anymore. My chest tightened, and before I could think, I admitted softly, "That's how it feels with you." The silence that followed was electric. Neither of us moved, as though stepping closer would shatter the fragile line between us. Finally, Maya reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The tenderness of the gesture nearly unraveled me. "I don't want to make your life harder," she said quietly. "But I can't pretend I don't feel this." I swallowed hard, my pulse racing. "Neither can I." For a long moment, we just stood there, breathing the same air, hearts thundering in sync. I wanted to close the distance, to surrender to the pull between us, but fear held me back. Fear of breaking Adam, fear of breaking the life I had built. When we finally parted that night, I felt both alive and torn apart. Maya had awakened a part of me I could never bury again. Walking home, I knew the truth more clearly than ever. The lines had already blurred, and there was no turning back. Cracks in the foundation. The night after the gallery, I couldn't sleep. My heart was too loud, my mind too restless. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Maya's face, her knowing smile, the way her hand lingered near mine, the softness in her eyes when she admitted she felt it too. I tossed and turned beside Adam, guilt sinking deep into my chest. How could I lie here next to him when my soul was somewhere else entirely? In the days that followed, the cracks in our relationship widened. Adam asked more questions, his eyes always searching mine. "Is there someone else?" he asked one morning, his voice heavy with suspicion and pain. I froze. The truth burned on my tongue, but I swallowed it down. "No, of course not," I whispered, looking away. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded, but I could see he didn't believe me. I wanted to hate myself, but when Maya texted later that day, my heart leapt in a way it never did with Adam. She asked if I wanted to go for a walk. Against my better judgment, I said yes. We met at the park just as the sun was setting, the sky painted in soft hues of pink and orange. The air felt heavy with unspoken words. As we walked side by side, the silence stretched, until finally Maya broke it. "You look torn," she said gently. "I am," I admitted, my voice trembling. "Adam doesn't deserve this. He doesn't deserve to lose me." "And what about you?" she asked, her gaze steady, searching. "Don't you deserve to be happy?" Her question pierced me. I had spent so long thinking about Adam, about what people would say, about what was expected of me. But what about me? What about the way my heart raced when I was with her, the way I finally felt alive? We sat on a bench, the air cooling as night began to settle. Maya turned to me, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to be the reason you hurt him. But I can't keep pretending I don't care about you." Tears welled in my eyes. "I care about you too. More than I should." For a moment, we just stared at each other, caught in the tension between right and wrong, love and duty. Then, as if pulled by something stronger than both of us, she leaned closer. My breath hitched, and before I knew it, her lips were on mine. It was soft, hesitant at first, but it felt like everything I had been missing all along. My whole body trembled as I kissed her back, surrendering to the truth I had denied for so long. When we finally pulled apart, I could barely breathe. "This changes everything," I whispered. Maya nodded, her eyes shining. "It already has." That night, as I walked home, the weight of my choice pressed heavily on me. I couldn't keep living in two worlds. The truth would have to come out one way or another. Truths in the shadows. The kiss with Maya lingered on my lips for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I could feel it again, the softness, the fire, the undeniable truth of what my heart had been craving. It was more than a kiss. It was a revelation. And it left me both exhilarated and terrified. When I returned home that night, Adam was waiting. He smiled at me, asked how my evening was, and I felt a wave of guilt so strong it nearly knocked me down. How could I look at him, this man who had given me nothing but love when I had just kissed someone else. Someone who made me question everything. The days that followed were filled with silence and distance. I couldn't meet Adam's eyes for long without feeling like I was betraying him all over again. He noticed, of course. He always noticed. One evening, as we sat at the kitchen table, he reached for my hand. "I need you to be honest with me," he said, his voice steady but pained. "Are you in love with someone else?" The air left my lungs. My first instinct was to deny it, to keep the peace, but something in his gaze, so raw, so desperate, made lying impossible. Tears welled in my eyes as I whispered, "I don't know what I'm in. But yes, there's someone." The silence that followed was deafening. His hand slipped from mine, his jaw tightening as he turned away. "Her," he muttered, almost to himself. "It's her, isn't it?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The truth was written all over my face. Adam stood, pacing the room, his fists clenching and unclenching. "I gave you everything," he said, his voice breaking. "Years of my life, every ounce of love I had, and you throw it away for someone you barely know?" His words cut deep, but they weren't entirely true. I hadn't thrown it away for anyone. I had simply realized that what we had was never the whole truth of me. "I never meant to hurt you," I whispered, tears streaming down my cheeks. "I care for you, Adam. I always will. But when I'm with her, I feel something I've never felt before." He stopped, turning to face me, his eyes red with unshed tears. "So what now? You leave me for her? After everything we've built?" The weight of his question crushed me. I didn't know the answer. All I knew was that my heart was no longer his, and pretending otherwise would only prolong the pain. That night, Adam slept on the couch. I lay awake in our bed, staring at the ceiling, drowning in guilt and longing. I wanted to run to Maya, to find comfort in her arms, but I couldn't. Not yet. For the first time, the life I had built felt like it was crumbling beneath me. And deep down, I knew it was only the beginning. The comfort of her arms. The days after my confession to Adam felt like moving through fog. The air between us was heavy, filled with silence that spoke louder than words ever could. He avoided my eyes, and I avoided the truth that no matter how much I cared for him, my heart had already crossed a line. I needed clarity. I needed to breathe. And instinctively, I found myself reaching for Maya. She answered on the first ring, her voice gentle. "Are you okay?" "No," I admitted, tears welling up even before I realized I was crying. "Can I see you?" Within an hour, we were together. Maya welcomed me into her apartment with the kind of warmth that felt like home, even though I had only been there once before. She didn't press me for details. Instead, she pulled me into her arms, and I let myself collapse against her. For the first time in days, I exhaled. I told her everything, how Adam had confronted me, how the truth had spilled out, how lost I felt standing between two worlds. She listened quietly, her hand tracing circles on my back, grounding me. "You don't have to have all the answers right now," she said softly. "But you do have to be honest, with him, with me, and with yourself." Her words sank deep. Honesty. It sounded simple, yet it was the hardest thing in the world. We sat on the couch, our hands brushing now and then, each touch sparking that familiar electricity. Eventually, she turned to me, her eyes searching mine. "Do you regret us?" she asked. I shook my head without hesitation. "No, not for a second. Being with you, it feels like finally finding the missing piece of myself." Maya's eyes softened, but there was pain there too. "I don't want to be just an escape for you. I want to be chosen fully, completely." Her words struck me harder than I expected. She deserved more than half of me. She deserved more than stolen moments and whispered confessions. And deep down, I knew she was right. That night, as the city lights glowed outside her window, we leaned into each other, our lips meeting once again. This time, there was no hesitation, no holding back. The kiss was deep, full of everything we had been afraid to say aloud. I felt my heart surrender, not in fear, but in truth. When we finally pulled apart, I rested my forehead against hers, breathless. "I'm scared," I admitted. "So am I," she whispered. "But sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that set us free." In her arms, I felt safe, but I also knew the road ahead would not be easy. Loving her meant breaking the life I had with Adam beyond repair. But it also meant stepping into the truest version of myself. And for the first time, I began to wonder if the hardest choice was really a choice at all. The hardest choice. The morning after I stayed with Maya, I woke with her arms wrapped around me, the sunlight spilling through her curtains. For a fleeting moment, I let myself imagine what it would be like if this was my life every day, waking up beside her, feeling whole, feeling alive. But the thought of Adam waiting, broken, in the life I had shared with him crashed down like a wave. I knew I couldn't avoid the truth any longer. That evening, I returned to the apartment Adam and I had shared for years. He was sitting on the couch, his face tired, his eyes shadowed with sleeplessness. He didn't look at me when I walked in. The silence between us was unbearable. Finally, I spoke. Adam, we need to talk. He laughed bitterly. That's usually what people say before they end things. Tears filled my eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. You've been nothing but good to me, but somewhere along the way, I realized something I can't ignore anymore. He turned then, his expression a mixture of anger and heartbreak. That you love her? I swallowed hard, my voice trembling. Yes. The word hung heavy in the air. It was the first time I had said it out loud to him, to myself. And though it tore me apart to see his pain, it also felt like stepping into the light after years of shadows. Adam stood, pacing the room, his hands clenched. So what was I? A placeholder until she came along. No, I whispered. You were love, in a way I thought was enough. But with her, it's different. It's deeper. It's me. For a long moment, he just stared at me, his chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. Then, finally, he nodded, though his eyes shone with tears. I hope she's worth all this, he said quietly, before turning away. Leaving that apartment felt like leaving behind a version of myself I could never return to. My chest ached, but my steps felt lighter. For the first time, I wasn't walking away from who I was. I was walking toward who I wanted to be. That night, I went back to Maya. When she opened the door, worry etched across her face, I didn't hesitate. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her as tightly as I could. It's you, I whispered into her hair. It's always been you. She pulled back just enough to look into my eyes, her own glistening. Are you sure? I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. For the first time in my life, I'm completely sure. She kissed me then, soft, tender, and full of the promise of a new beginning. And in that moment, I knew that choosing her hadn't been the hardest choice after all. The hardest part had been denying the truth of my own heart. At last, I had stopped denying it. And I was free.